First on the Kelly File tonight, remember Mumia Abu-Jamal? He is the convicted cop killer who was defended on his death sentence by a guy President Obama nominated for a top DOJ position. Well, Republicans and Democrats ultimately united to kill that nomination. But now it seems a California labor union is upset that a school district out west might not want to teach children that Abu-Jamal is some kind of hero. You see, this man's case has long been a cause célèbre for many on the left who believe he was railroaded because of his race. Now, keep in mind, he was convicted of shooting Officer Daniel Faulkner 5 times, including in the face while the police officer was down, and his guilt was repeatedly upheld by several courts. My next guest believes that Abu-Jamal is not only innocent, but is similar to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She wants this lesson taught to children. Joanna Fernandez is a history professor and one of the coordinators for the campaign to bring Mumia home. Ma'am, it's good to see you tonight. And so he was convicted. His guilt was upheld repeatedly, even though his death sentence was overturned. So the courts gave him a fair shot. Why on earth would you want to see children taught that this man is in any way like Dr. Martin Luther King?
Well, I think it's important to note that the racially coded language that's used in the media to describe Mumia Abu-Jamal, like a convicted cop killer, thug, militant, these words essentially stand in the way of really exploring what happened in this case.
Well, thug and militant are two descriptive terms, but convicted cop killer is factual.
Well, I think that the reason why the facts of this case haven't come to light is because of the influence of the Fraternal Order of Police on the prosecution, the judge, and the jury during this case. Let me give you a sense of one of the most important facts about this case. There was a 4th person at the scene of the crime who was identified as the shooter by 4 witnesses. That person was seen running away from the scene of the crime and was identified as the shooter, but the presence of the 4th person on the scene of the crime was suppressed by the prosecution and by the judge.
All right, but let me set the record straight on that, because that argument was raised before a judge who examined the record and rejected it out of hand. Moreover, the weapon that killed Officer Faulkner was found on Mumia. Moreover, several witnesses testified they saw him shoot Officer Faulkner 5 times. Moreover, they testified at trial they heard him confess to it and refer to police in very derogatory terms. The evidence was there. A jury of his peers heard him and convicted him, including 10 white jurors and 2 black jurors, and that conviction was upheld repeatedly. Even though, if I accept everything you said, there's at a minimum controversy over the man. Why would you want students being taught that he has anything in common with MLK?
15 of the police officers who collected evidence in Mumia's case were jailed, convicted for tampering with evidence, for corruption and extortion. In this case, it's part of the record.
The appeals court found those allegations.
You are entitled to your own opinion, but not to your own facts.
The appeals court did not find that persuasive, ma'am.
This is part of the public record. You know why? Because one of the most important people in this case, Judge Ron Castile, who essentially is the head of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, he was asked to recuse himself from the trial, from hearing Mumia's appeal, but he refused to do so.
You want to relitigate the case.
No, I don't want to relitigate the case.
The Supreme Court
I want to
rejected
establish why in this country you can have black people convicted, but that doesn't necessarily mean
this black person was convicted by 2 other black people,
There
among
is a
others.
long history in this country of criminalization of black people. Just because
were
you're
the black
railroaded
people
in the
jury
courts,
biased against him?
Well, you know what? He was not convicted by a jury of his peers. 40% of the people in Philadelphia are black. But
so there weren't enough black people on the jury.
There weren't enough blacks in the jury. But let me finish the story about Ron Castile, because this is probably one of the most important.
I'd like to just
stick on topic. This is one of the most important issues in this case, which will explain why he hasn't been granted relief in the appellate process.
This is an issue. I'm trying to get us past the facts of the case, which I think we've shown the viewers are disputed.
Understanding why the court system has failed Mumia,
I beg of you, not just Mumia,
but so many other people.
Please answer the question about why any student should hear this man compared in any serious tone to Dr. Martin Luther King, who was against violence.
You know what? Ms. Kelly, I think that Americans don't really know who Martin Luther King was. By the end of his life, Martin Luther King said at the Riverside Church in 1967 that the United States is the biggest purveyor of violence in the world. He also said in his I Have a Dream speech that he could not stand by before the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. Essentially, by the end of his life, Martin Luther King, like Mumia Abu-Jamal, was a radical. What does that mean? Radical means a person who seeks.
I'm giving you the floor.
A person who seeks to address the root causes of social problems.
But you can't just come on and talk.
Ma'am, but you've been interrupting me since I've gotten on.
I'm trying to get you on point. I'm trying to get. We don't have time to relitigate.
We're having a conversation about a very complicated case.
Our conversation is over. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. We've got Jason Riley to respond to this. Are we going to go to him now? Or we're going to do him after the break. All right, we got to take a quick break. Well, for more on this now, we're joined by Jason Riley, who's a Fox News contributor and Wall Street Journal editorial board member and also author of the book, Please Stop Helping Us, How Liberals Make It Harder for Blacks to Succeed. And you say, Jason?
I say you did a great job of laying out the case against him. The only thing I'd add is that his brother was there at the scene and to this day has never testified to Jamal's innocence, which I think...
And just to add to that, they called him on the appeal. They said, hey, okay, come and back up your brother who says it wasn't him, it was another guy. Yeah. And the guy never even showed up.
Exactly.
They want the courts to overturn this conviction based on some guy who doesn't even bother to show up to help his brother.
Yeah, I don't think his guilt is really in much doubt, Megan. It's bad enough that some people on the left want to celebrate this guy as a hero, turn him into some sort of celebrity. But I think it's even sadder, or just as sad, that they want to introduce this man to a curriculum for school children. Hold him out as some sort of role model or hero for black children. That is the wrong message to send to black children. I mean, the worst kind of message to send to black children.
And how disparaging to Martin Luther King in his memory.
Comparing him to Martin Luther King, who preached nonviolence. This guy was a Black Panther, a separatist. King preached integration. There's just no comparison. But, Megan, the other point to make here is that you know, black parents right now are already busy trying to shield their kids from rappers who are celebrating black criminals in their lyrics. Now they have to guard them against the school curriculum that is going to be celebrating black criminality. Black criminality needs to be condemned. Out of hand. It doesn't need to be celebrated.
Her position is he's not a criminal, that he's a victim of a racist system that never should have convicted him.
By the way, it's a racist system today, and this is conveniently forgotten. It's a racist system today, supposedly, that is run by one black man, Eric Holder, who reports to another, the President of the United States. But yes, he is held out as a symbol of a racist criminal justice system. In fact, he is a symbol of black criminality, Megan. And black criminality is something the left does not want to talk about head on. They want to blame all of these awful outcomes on a racist judge or racist cops or racist prosecutors. But that is not why black kids are shooting one another in Chicago. That is not why you have this warped sense of what it means to be a black man in the black ghetto. This man is a symbol of what is wrong with ghetto black culture, and he should not be celebrated.
They use him because they say that they want to discuss in class, by using his story, the invaluable lessons about social justice.
Social justice. By the way, black kids are graduating from high school reading 3 grade levels behind white kids. So you'd think they'd have other things to prioritize before they get to social justice and other such nonsense. But what they are really teaching is another generation of black kids to see themselves as victims, to see themselves as inevitably targets of a racist criminal justice system. That is the wrong message to send to these kids. And it's a shame. Yeah. It's beyond shameful that this would be pushed in curriculums in schools.
The school district is reviewing it, but the labor union is not happy. Jason, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.